Camera slowly pans across the glittering Manhattan skyline at golden hour, towering skyscrapers catching the last rays of sunlight like mirrors of success and ambition. Have you ever looked at those who seem to have it all and wondered if they're truly happy? Up here, in the penthouses that pierce the clouds, lives a different breed of people: the ultra-wealthy, the privileged, the ones who never have to check their bank accounts before making a purchase. And among them, in the most exclusive address on Park Avenue, lives Victoria Chase. At 26, Victoria Chase is what most would consider the epitome of success. Heir to the $4.2 billion Chase Industries fortune, she graces the covers of business magazines and society pages alike. Her wardrobe could fund a small country's economy, and her database of connections reads like a who's who of global influence. From the outside looking in, Victoria Chase is living the American dream. Cut to Victoria sitting alone in her luxurious penthouse, still in her designer suit from a board meeting, absently scrolling through her phone. But if you look closely past the Cartier watch that adorns her wrist, beyond the perfectly styled honey blonde hair and manicured nails, you'll see something in her hazel eyes that all her father's money can't fix: loneliness. Another charity gala tonight, MS. Chase, her assistant's voice chirps through the intercom. The guest list includes several eligible bachelors your father thought you might want to meet. Victoria's reflection stares back at her from the floor-to-ceiling windows, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Another night of shallow conversations, of men looking at her bank account instead of into her eyes, of being Victoria Chase, the billion-dollar heiress, instead of just Victoria. Close up on Victoria's face as she watches the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. What's the price of authenticity in a world where everything's for sale? For Victoria Chase, that's about to become a multi-billion-dollar question. Montage begins young Victoria in private school uniform, sitting alone at lunch while other children play. Victoria Chase learned early that privilege came with a price. While other kids had play dates and birthday parties, she had etiquette lessons and charity functions. Her childhood home, a sprawling Manhattan penthouse, echoed with the sounds of business calls and the click-clack of her mother's heels against marble floors. Cut to teenage Victoria receiving awards, always with her father standing proudly behind her. Chase women aren't just pretty faces, her father, Richard Chase, would say. We're building an empire here, Victoria. One day, all of this will be yours: every achievement, every perfect grade, every extracurricular activity. They weren't choices, they were expectations. The weight of the Chase legacy pressed down on her shoulders like the designer clothes that filled her closet. Seen Victoria in a board meeting, commanding attention in a power suit. By 26, Victoria had become exactly what Chase Industries needed: sharp, sophisticated, and seemingly perfect. Harvard Business School graduate, fluent in 4 languages, and with a natural talent for corporate strategy that even her father had to admire. But success in the boardroom didn't translate to happiness in the living room. Montage series of dinner dates at exclusive restaurants. So I just closed a deal with Saudi investors, the hedge fund manager across the table droned on, checking his Apple Watch every few minutes. Victoria nodded politely, having perfected the art of looking interested, while her mind wandered. My family's yacht is bigger than the Vanderbilts. Another date, another display of wealth and ego. The restaurant's Michelin stars couldn't make up for the starless conversation. Your father mentioned the merger possibilities, and there, it was the real reason behind every carefully orchestrated date. Victoria wasn't a person to these men, she was a business opportunity with legs. Seen Victoria's private office at Chase Industries. The Thompson boy seems nice, her father said, casually dropping a dossier on her desk. His family's technology division would align perfectly with our expansion plans. Victoria stared at the file, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palm. Dad, I'm not a merger deal to be negotiated. Of course not, sweetheart. Richard Chase's smile didn't reach his eyes. But you're 26 now. It's time to think about the future of Chase Industries. The right marriage could secure our position for generations. Seen Victoria in her bedroom, surrounded by society magazines with her face on the covers. Later that night, Victoria scrolled through her phone, past hundreds of messages from people who wanted something from her. Invitations to galas, business propositions, marriage proposals from men who'd never asked about her favorite book or what made her laugh. Cut to Victoria watching from her window as a young couple walks down the street below, laughing, sharing a hot dog from a street vendor. That's when it hit her. The couple below had something she'd never experienced: simplicity, authenticity, real connection. They weren't performing for anyone, they were just living. They'd seen Victoria at her laptop, late at night. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Brooklyn apartments for rent, then waitress jobs. Now I see finally how to create a new identity. Close up Victoria's face, a mix of fear and determination. A mess. Chase, her assistant's voice through the intercom, startled her. Your father wants to discuss the Thompson merger over dinner tonight. Victoria closed her laptop, a plan forming in her mind. If she couldn't find real love as Victoria Chase, billionaire heiress, perhaps she could find it as someone else entirely. Seen Victoria standing in front of her massive closet. She ran her hands over the designer dresses, each one worth more than most people's monthly salary. Then her eyes landed on a simple black dress, forgotten in the back of her closet, the kind a waitress might wear. Close up Victoria's reflection in the mirror as she holds the dress up. Sometimes, finding yourself means losing everything you thought you were supposed to be. Seen early morning, Victoria wheeling a small suitcase through Brooklyn streets. The sun hadn't yet risen when Victoria Chase disappeared. In her place, Tori Wilson emerged, a simple girl from Ohio trying to make it in the big city. The small walk-up apartment in Williamsburg cost more for 1 month than most of her shoes, but to Victoria, it felt like freedom. Montage: Victoria struggling with everyday tasks. The first time she tried to do laundry, she turned all her new normal clothes pink. When the hot water went out, she spent 20 minutes staring at the building's ancient boiler before admitting defeat and calling the super. Every minor catastrophe felt like a victory, proof she was living a real life, not a curated one. Scene interior of Joe's diner, early morning. You ever waitressed before? Honey Joe Martinez, the diner's owner, peered at her over reading glasses held together with tape. His weathered face had more stories than her father's leather-bound first editions. No, sir, Victoria answered truthfully, fighting the urge to fix her posture into boardroom perfection. But I'm a quick learner. Joe's laugh was as warm as the coffee he served. Well, at least you're honest. Most people come in here swearing they're experts. Start tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp. Montage: Victoria Tori's first days at the diner. She dropped 3 plates her first morning, spilled coffee on herself twice, mixed up orders and got yelled at by hangry customers. But somehow these failures felt more authentic than any of her perfectly executed business successes. You're holding the coffee pot wrong, Rookie Maria, the veteran waitress, showed her the correct grip. And forget everything you've seen in movies, we stack plates up the arm. Like this. Seen Victoria in her apartment, counting tips, $27.43. She earned it with aching feet and coffee stains, but it was the first money that felt truly hers. Not her trust fund, not her inheritance, just the result of honest work and decent service. Montage: Victoria adapting to her new life. She learned to budget for groceries, to take the subway during rush hour, to appreciate the luxury of a pizza slice after a long shift. Her designer mask melted away, replaced by something real: calluses on her hands, a few strands of hair escaping her practical ponytail, genuine smiles that reached her eyes. Seen Victoria serving regular customers at the diner. The usual, Mrs. Henderson, she asked the elderly woman who came in every morning. You're getting good at this, Tori. Mrs. Henderson smiled, and for once, Victoria felt she was being praised for who she was, not what she represented. Close up Victoria wiping down counters at closing time. In trying to become someone else, Victoria was finally becoming herself. Seen Joe's diner, rainy Tuesday morning. It wasn't love at first sight, it was better. When Marcus Rodriguez first walked into Joe's diner, trailing rainwater and carrying a canvas wrapped in plastic, Victoria was too busy juggling 4 breakfast orders to notice him. But then she heard his laugh. I'll trade you a sketch for a cup of coffee, he was telling Joe, pulling out a worn sketchbook. Times are tight this week. Put that away, Joe grumbled, already pouring the coffee. Your money's no good here anyway, kid. How's the community center project going? Close up Victoria watching the interaction while delivering plates. Something about his voice made her turn warm, genuine, with none of the practiced smoothness she was used to from her previous life. Paint-stained jeans, a threadbare leather jacket, and the most honest smile she'd ever seen. Order up, Tori Maria's voice snapped her back to reality, just in time to prevent her from colliding with Marcus. Were there, his hands steadied her shoulders, preventing the plates from crashing. That would have been a tragedy for those pancakes. Seen their eyes meet for the first time. His eyes were the sort that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. Not calculating, not assessing her worth, just present. Victoria felt her carefully constructed Tori persona flutter. Thanks, she managed, suddenly aware of her messy ponytail and coffee-stained apron. Can I get you anything else besides coffee? Just some good company, if you can spare it, he replied, settling into the counter seat. I'm Marcus. Montage their first conversation. She learned he was an artist who taught art at the local community center. Between serving other customers, she found herself drawn back to his counter seat, where he was sketching the diner's regulars. See how Mrs. Henderson holds her coffee cup, he showed her his sketch. That's 30 years of morning ritual right there. Every person has a story in their gestures. Victoria looked at the sketch, seeing the diner through his eyes, not just a greasy spoon, but a canvas of human moments. Scene end of her shift. I'm heading to the community center, Marcus said, packing up his sketchbook. We're painting a mural with the kids. Want to come see? Scene community center. The center was alive with color and chaos. Children wielded paintbrushes like magic wands, transforming a drab wall into a jungle of imagination. Marcus moved among them with infinite patience, encouraging here, guiding there. Art isn't about being perfect, he told a frustrated young boy. It's about expressing what's in your heart. Sometimes the mess is the most beautiful part. Victoria watched him work, something warm unfurling in her chest. This wasn't the calculated philanthropy of her old world, this was raw, real impact. Seen Marcus helping a little girl mix colors. The trick is, he explained to the wide-eyed child, every color has a story to tell. When they meet, they create something entirely new. He glanced up at Victoria, paint smudged on his cheek. Sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected combinations. Close up Victoria's face as she watches him. For the first time in her life, Victoria felt her walls crumbling. Not because Marcus was trying to break them down, but because he made her want to let them fall. Seen them walking back to the diner at sunset. Same time tomorrow, he asked, that genuine smile making her heart skip. Same time tomorrow, she agreed, knowing she was falling into something both wonderful and dangerous. Because for the first time, Victoria Chase wasn't pretending, and that was the scariest part of all. Montage changing seasons in Brooklyn, leaves turning golden. Spring melted into summer, and Victoria's double life fell into a rhythm. Morning shifts at the diner became a dance she knew by heart, but the best part of each day was when Marcus would appear, paint splattered and smiling, at precisely 10:15 a.m. Seen Joe's diner, busy morning. Your starving artist is here, Maria teased, nudging Victoria as she refilled coffee cups, though he seems to be eating more than just toast these days. Victoria blushed, watching Marcus sketch in his usual spot. He'd started ordering full breakfasts, she suspected, less from hunger and more to extend their time together. Seen Victoria and Marcus walking through Brooklyn streets. See that building? Marcus pointed to a crumbling brownstone. The owner lets local artists use the basement as studio space. Not exactly glamorous, but it's perfect, Victoria finished, meaning it. The raw authenticity of his world made her penthouse feel like a gilded cage. Seen Marcus's studio basement. Paint cans and canvases crowded the small space, but Victoria had never felt more at home. Marcus worked on his latest piece while she sat on a paint-stained stool, watching his hands bring colors to life. What made you choose art? She asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Marcus paused, brush mid-stroke. My mom used to clean offices in Manhattan. Late nights, you know. She'd take me with her sometimes, and I'd draw on discarded paper while she worked. One night I drew her portrait on the back of a memo. She cried when she saw it said it was the first time someone had seen her, really seen her. The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. Being seen. Wasn't that what she'd been searching for all along? Seen community center art class. Miss Tori, look, a young girl named Sophie held up her painting proudly. Mr. Marcus taught me how to mix colors. Victoria knelt beside her, fighting back tears. These kids didn't care about stock portfolios or social status. They just wanted someone to notice their art, their dreams, their existence. Scene rooftop garden where Marcus brought her. "I come here to think," he said, showing her his secret spot above the city. String lights twinkled overhead and potted plants created a magical oasis. "Sometimes the city feels too big, you know, like we're all just pretending to have it figured out." Victoria's heart clenched. If only he knew how much pretending she was doing. Scene late-night conversation at a 24-hour diner. "What about you?" Marcus asked, stirring his coffee. "What's your dream?" Victoria froze. In her old life, the answer was predetermined: take over Chase Industries, maintain the legacy. But here, with Marcus, "I want to make a difference," she said slowly, surprising herself with the truth in her words. "Not just exist, but really matter to people. Like what you do with your art programs." Marcus reached across the table, taking her hand. "You already make a difference, Tori. The way you remember Mrs. Henderson's grandson's name, how you slip extra bacon to that homeless guy on Tuesdays, the time you spent 3 hours helping Sophie with her art project that's real impact." Scene Victoria alone in her Brooklyn apartment. Later that night, Victoria stared at her phone. 12 missed calls from her father, 3 urgent emails about board meetings. Her two worlds were growing further apart, even as her feelings for Marcus grew stronger. Montage intimate moments between them, teaching her to mix paint colors. His hand on the small of her back as they walked through art galleries, sharing an umbrella in sudden rain. Dancing to street musicians, each moment precious, each one built on a foundation of lies. Scene Victoria watching Marcus teach. "Art is truth," he told his students, passion in his voice. "It's about sharing your authentic self with the world." Victoria slipped out of the room, her chest tight. Every day she fell more in love with Marcus. And every day the weight of her deception grew heavier. Scene Victoria looking at her reflection. In her tiny bathroom mirror, she barely recognized herself anymore. The designer clothes in the back of her closet felt like artifacts from another life. She was more herself now than she'd ever been, except for the one massive lie at the center of it all. Close up Victoria's face as she makes a decision. "I have to tell him," she whispered to her reflection. But the words stuck in her throat, because telling him meant risking everything. And for the first time in her life, everything actually meant something. Scene Victoria scrolling through news on her phone. Chase heiress missing. Victoria Chase's mysterious absence from public life. Where is Victoria Chase? Billion-dollar question puzzles New York society. Chase Industries stock wavers amid heiress's extended silence. Victoria's hands trembled as she closed the news apps. Her carefully constructed second life was starting to show cracks. Scene diner interior, busy lunch rush. "Did you see this?" A customer held up the New York Post. Victoria Chase's face splashed across the cover. "They're saying she might have been kidnapped." Victoria nearly dropped the coffee pot, her heart pounding. From his usual spot, Marcus glanced at the paper with mild interest. Rich people problems, I guess. Scene close call at an art gallery. "MS Chase?" "Victoria Chase, is that you?" Victoria's blood ran cold. She was with Marcus at a Chelsea gallery opening when she heard the familiar voice. Without thinking, she ducked behind a sculpture. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked when she reappeared, concern in his eyes. "Just thought I saw someone I knew," she mumbled, guilt churning in her stomach. Scene Marcus's studio, exciting news. "Tori, you won't believe this." Marcus burst into the diner, waving a letter. "The Riverside Gallery wants to feature my community art program pieces. It's a 3-month exhibition." Victoria's heart soared with genuine joy. "Marcus, that's amazing." There's more. His eyes sparkled with excitement. "They're partnering with the Chase Foundation for their community outreach program. Can you believe it? This could change everything for the kids." The joy in Victoria's chest turned to ice. The Chase Foundation. Her foundation. Scene Victoria's apartment. Urgent phone call. Miss Victoria, her father's assistant's voice was tight with worry. "Your father, he's had a heart attack." The world tilted on its axis. Through the panic, she heard words like intensive care and asking for you. Scene hospital corridor. Victoria in disguise. She wore sunglasses and a baseball cap, slipping through the hospital corridors like a ghost. Through the ICU window she saw him, Richard Chase, the titan of industry, looking small and vulnerable against white hospital sheets. "He keeps asking why you won't come." Her mother's voice made her jump. Victoria, whatever game you're playing, it needs to stop. Scene back at the diner. The Chase Foundation is sending representatives to meet the artists next week, Marcus told her excitedly. This could be huge for the community center. Victoria nodded mechanically, her mind racing. Her father in the hospital, the foundation review. Her two worlds were colliding at devastating speed. Scene Victoria watching news coverage. Sources close to the Chase family suggest Victoria Chase's disappearance may be linked to corporate espionage. Rumors of mental health struggles surface as Chase Industries faces crucial merger decisions. Anonymous source suggests possible substance abuse issues. Scene community center preparation. These kids deserve this chance, Marcus said, helping students prepare their pieces for the gallery showing. Art saved my life. Maybe it can save theirs too. Victoria watched him work, tears threatening. His dream was finally coming true, funded by the very fortune she was hiding from him. Scene hospital, late night. Disguised again, Victoria slipped into her father's room after visiting hours. His hand felt frail in hers. Victoria, he mumbled in his sleep. I'm sorry, should have listened. Scene Marcus's studio, critical moment. The Chase Foundation representatives want to meet tomorrow, Marcus said, organizing his portfolio. I've included the piece I did of you, the one from the rooftop garden. It's my best work. Victoria stared at the portrait. Marcus had captured something in her eyes, a truth she'd been running from. In trying to find herself, she'd created a web of lies that threatened to destroy everything she loved. Close up Victoria's face as reality crashes in. Her father needed her. Marcus's future hung in the balance. And somewhere between Victoria Chase and Tori Wilson, she had to find the courage to face the truth before it was too late. Scene Riverside Gallery, opening night of the exhibition. The gallery buzzed with excitement. Marcus's artwork transformed the white walls into windows of humanity, faces from the community center, street scenes of Brooklyn life, and centerpiece the portrait of Tori on the rooftop garden, her face caught in a moment of unguarded joy. Victoria's heart raced. The Chase Foundation representatives would arrive any minute. She had to tell Marcus before. Victoria Chase. The voice cut through the crowd like a knife. Victoria turned to see her father's executive assistant, Jennifer, staring at her in shock. Scene the revelation unfolds. MS. Chase, we've been searching everywhere for you. Your father. Victoria Chase. Marcus appeared beside her, confusion etching his features. Tori, what's she talking about? The gallery seemed to shrink, faces turning toward them. Victoria saw the moment reality dawned in Marcus's eyes. But the Chase Foundation, he whispered. That's why you've been acting strange about it. Because it's yours. Scene the fallout. Were any of it real? Marcus's voice was quiet, devastating. The waitress struggling to make rent. The girl who said she finally felt like she belonged somewhere. Was it all just some billionaire's game? Marcus, please. Victoria reached for him, but he stepped back. You watched me worry about funding for the kids' program. You saw me skip meals to buy art supplies. All while you had billions. His laugh was hollow. I shared everything with you. My life, my dreams, my fears. And you were just playing pretend. Scene hospital room, same night. Victoria burst into her father's room, still in her gallery clothes. Richard Chase sat up in bed, tubes and monitors surrounding him. So you finally decided to stop this nonsense, he said, his voice weak but sharp. Nonsense? Victoria's voice cracked. I found something real, Dad. Something that mattered. Real, he scoffed. Playing waitress? Dating a penniless artist? That's not real life, Victoria. That's a fantasy. No, she stood straighter. Fantasy is thinking money equals happiness. Fantasy is arranging marriages like business mergers. I've lived both lives now, Dad. I know which one's real. Scene internal struggle, Victoria alone in her Brooklyn apartment. Victoria sat on her small bed, the worlds she'd tried to keep separate crashing together. Her phone buzzed constantly, board members, press, her mother. On her wall hung a sketch Marcus had done of her serving coffee, joy in every pencil stroke. She could return to her old life, take over the company, make her father proud, keep the Chase legacy intact. Or she could fight for something real. Scene confrontation with Marcus at his studio. She found him packing up his art supplies, the studio already half empty. I grew up surrounded by people who only wanted something from me. Her voice shook. My name, my money, my position. No one ever wanted juice me. Marcus didn't turn around. And how exactly would I know who just you is? Because you're the first person who saw me before you knew what I was worth. She stepped closer. My name was a lie, yes, but everything else, every laugh, every conversation, every moment with you, that was the truest thing in my life. Scene final confrontation with her father. You have responsibilities, her father insisted from his hospital bed. To the company, to our legacy. But what about my responsibility to myself? Victoria's voice was steady now. You taught me to be a good businesswoman, Dad. Now let me be a good human being. Close up Victoria's face as she makes her choice. In the end, it wasn't a choice between love and duty. It was a choice between living someone else's truth or fighting for her own. Scene Chase Industries boardroom, 1 week later. Victoria stood before the board of directors, her father watching from his wheelchair. Gone was the designer suit armor of her past. Instead, she wore a simple black dress, the one she'd worn as a waitress at Joe's. Chase Industries has always been about legacy, she began, her voice clear and strong. But legacy isn't just about profit margins and market shares. It's about impact. Real, meaningful impact on real people's lives. Scene presentation of her vision. I propose transforming the Chase Foundation into something more than a tax write-off. Victoria clicked through slides showing the community center, the children's artwork, the transformed neighborhoods. We have the power to make art accessible to everyone, to give voice to communities that have been silenced by poverty. Her father shifted in his wheelchair. And how exactly does this benefit our shareholders? Victoria smiled. By showing them that Chase Industries isn't just another soulless corporation. We can be leaders in corporate responsibility, in community engagement, in real change. Scene private conversation with her father. Later, in his office, Richard Chase studied his daughter. You've changed. I grew up, Dad. Victoria sat across from him. You taught me to be strong, to lead, to take charge. That's exactly what I'm doing, just not in the way you expected. He was quiet for a long moment. That artist, he's the reason. No, Victoria shook her head. He's the result. I found myself first. Love came after. Scene Marcus's studio, late evening. She found him working late, music playing softly. He didn't look up when she entered. The board approved my proposal, she said quietly. The Chase Foundation is being restructured. Full funding for community art programs across the city. After-school programs, scholarships, supply grants. Marcus put down his brush. Congratulations. The Victoria Chase I read about in the papers certainly gets things done. I'm not just Victoria Chase, she stepped closer. And I was never just Tori Wilson, I'm both. I'm all of it. The girl who knows how to run a billion-dollar company and the girl who can make the perfect cup of coffee. The woman who wants to make her father proud and the woman who fell in love with an artist who sees the beauty in ordinary moments. Scene emotional confrontation. How can I trust you? Marcus finally turned to face her. How do I know this isn't just another role you're playing? Victoria picked up one of his paintbrushes. You told me once that art is truth, that it's about sharing your authentic self with the world. She handed him the brush. I'm sharing mine. All of it. The messy, complicated truth of who I am. It's seen Joe's diner, early morning. Order up. Joe's voice rang out, just like always. Victoria, now known to all as both Victoria Chase and their Tori, carried plates to her regular customers. Didn't expect to see you still here, Mrs. Henderson smiled. Now that you're running that big company and all. Some things are too important to give up. Victoria glanced at Marcus, sketching in his usual spot. Seeing new community arts center opening. The renovated building gleamed in the summer sun. Where once stood an abandoned warehouse, now stood the Chase Rodriguez Community Arts Center. Children streamed in, eager to start their classes. Ready for this, Marcus took her hand, paint already staining his fingers. Together, Victoria squeezed his hand, her other hand holding documents for the next board meeting. Montage Victoria's new life. Morning meetings in the corporate office, afternoon art classes with the kids. Marcus's work hanging in prestigious galleries while he taught free classes to aspiring artists. Victoria in the boardroom, making decisions that balance profit with purpose. Scene: rooftop garden, sunset. You know, Marcus said, adding finishing touches to a new painting, when I first learned who you really were, I thought everything had been a lie. Victoria leaned against him, watching the city lights flicker on. And now I know it was the opposite. He turned to her, that honest smile she'd fallen in love with lighting his face. You had to pretend to be someone else to finally become who you really are. Final scene: Victoria addressing young artists. Don't let anyone else define your path, she told them, standing beside one of Marcus's murals. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply being your authentic self, every complicated, contradictory, beautiful part of you. Close up: Victoria's reflection in the gallery window. In the glass, she saw herself clearly at last, not the billionaire heiress, not the waitress, but something entirely new. Something real. Scene: Chase Industries, 1 year later. The wall of Victoria's office tells two stories. On one side hang the traditional portraits of Chase Industries leaders, ending with her own. On the other, a vibrant mural painted by the first graduating class of the Chase Rodriguez Arts program. Between them sits Victoria, no longer trying to choose between worlds, but embracing both. Montage: Victoria and Marcus's integrated life. Business meetings still fill her mornings, but now they're discussions about expanding art programs nationwide. The Chase Foundation has become the largest supporter of community arts in the country. While the company's profits have soared, it turns out authenticity is good for business. Marcus's gallery shows attract both elite collectors and neighborhood families. His latest series, Hidden in Plain Sight, celebrates the beauty of ordinary moments, including one special piece of a waitress serving coffee, her true self shining through every brushstroke. Scene: Community Center graduation. When I started this journey, Victoria addresses the graduating class. I thought I had to choose between being Victoria Chase, corporate heir, and Tori Wilson, waitress. I thought love meant giving up who I was born to be for who I wanted to be. She looks at Marcus, who watches proudly from the audience. But real love, whether it's romantic love, love for your community, or love for yourself, doesn't ask you to be less. It challenges you to be more, to be authentic, to be brave, to be completely, unapologetically yourself. Final shot: Victoria and Marcus walking through Brooklyn. They pass Joe's diner, where she still occasionally picks up a morning shift, just to stay grounded, she says. Marcus's hand finds hers, paint stains mixing with her corporate ink smudges. Above them, a billboard announces the Chase Industries' new slogan: "Authenticity is our greatest asset." Fade to black with final message. Sometimes finding true love isn't about becoming someone new, it's about having the courage to be who you've always been.